Since 1966, England have endured 56 years of hurt in their search for a second World Cup. Tournaments that have come and gone, in the craving for a second star, only a handful of times have England produced a genuine star that has lit up a tournament. Geoff Hurst remains the only man to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final. Paul Gascoigne's tricks and tears won the nation's heart, and whilst there was hope for the likes of Rooney and Owen, who were tipped to lead a golden generation to glory that just never came, now this new crop of English talent looks to banish all those years of hurt under the Arabian sun and finally bring football home. In the opening game of England's Qatari adventure, the next gem of this land made his presence truly known, and at just 19 years of age, the ultimate teenage star, the boy with the world at his feet, Jude Bellingham, showed everyone why he might just surpass all those that came before him and maybe be one of England's truly greatest players. So as the boy wonder hits the headline and England progress into the knockout rounds, let's ask the big questions. Who is this guy? Where has he come from? Discover his unconventional journey to the top and is surely one of England's next great midfield talents. Will he be the man to finally bring football home? Welcome back to the channel, and this is Jude Bellingham, DNA of a wonder kid. Right then, let's get started. On the 29th of June 2003, which is 2 years after I was born and frankly offensive, Jude Victor William Bellingham was born in Stourbridge, England, just under an hour from Birmingham. Jude was English by birth, but Brummy by the grace of God. Born into a football mad family, the beautiful game was always going to form an important aspect of his life. Most importantly, his dad, Mark, a local police sergeant, was a prolific non-league striker, netting apparently over 700 times in a 20-year period in the lower divisions. Now, perhaps this was just a throwaway line to inflate his ability to his impressionable young son, considering it would make him the 7th most prolific goalscorer ever. But personally speaking, I like to believe in the second city Shevchenko that was the greatest striker of a generation that just never really got his chance. Despite coming from such a football mad family, Jude's mentioned that he never really took a shine to the wider game itself. As a kid, he looked forward to the Champions League. Teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, or even Liverpool didn't really pique his fascination. Instead, his head was filled with dedication and fantasies of playing for his hometown club of Birmingham City. And Jude, at the age of 7, took his first steps to this lifelong dream when he was scouted by the Blues. But it became very clear once he walked through the doors of St Andrews, he was no ordinary player. In what today sounds like such a simple statement, Bellingham was special. Very, very special. Despite his young age, Jude rocketed up the ranks repeatedly, playing age levels above as his superb technical ability and long frame allowed for him to compete at all levels. And it's fair to say that the rise of this midfield sensation didn't go unnoticed as Europe's elite clubs circled, as rumours around this wonder kid in the Birmingham Academy emerged. Former Birmingham manager Gary Rowett told Sky Sports, "When he was 12, I used to bring him down to my office, and now and again, before a match, just to have a chat, to show him how much the club appreciated him and how much the club valued him. The word at the time was that every single top European club had tried to buy him, and they had been watching him all this time. I thought he was probably the most sought-after 12-year-old in Europe at one stage." In truth, Rowett and City needn't really have worried, that Birmingham's focus was never really diverted anywhere else but St Andrews. His family kept him grounded, and his obsession with Birmingham meant his eyes really never drifted too far from the second city. Importantly, coming through the ranks of the Blues meant his rise was kept relatively out of the wider limelight, and it offered him a clear road to regular first-team football. Bellingham made his debut for Birmingham's under-18s at just 14 and jumped to the under-23s in the same season. 3 goals in 10 appearances for the under-23s did earn some media plaudits, as he ranked 49th and the youngest player of 442's 50 most exciting teenagers in English football, having taken to under-23s football far better than your average 15-year-old has any right to, and captained England at both under-15 and under-16 level. In July 2019, despite interest elsewhere, Bellingham signed schoolboy scholarship forms with City, and with increasing interaction with the first team squads, it was just a matter of time before he exploded. It was during this time he was gifted his famous number 22, due to his ability to play as both an English 4, an 8 and a 10. And it was this gift of such versatility that got him into the first team when at 16 years old and 38 days, he became the youngest player in Birmingham City history, beginning off the left before moving into central midfield as the season went on. Throughout the 2019-20 season, Bellingham made his presence known, playing 32 times for Birmingham, scoring 4 times and assisting twice. His almost seamless transition into the first-team football game earned him the Best Football League Apprentice Award of the Year and the wider Championship Young Player of the Year award, even as the Blues struggled battling relegation from the second tier, only surviving completely mathematically on the final day. But now this is where the story becomes just that bit tougher. To this point, Bellingham lived his boyhood dream and everyone's boyhood dream of playing and being the best player for your hometown club. But he was more than just the best player. As we mentioned, he was a special player, and Birmingham had provided him a comfortable area, raising him into the game, but sadly it became clear they could only take him so far. At the end of the season, still only 17, he's one of the hottest prospects in European football, and he wasn't even playing in his nation's top flight, never mind European competition. The potential top European club saw 5 or 6 years ago in a young child Bellingham was now bursting at the seams, but the question then came, well, where do you go next? To many, the grandest club in the land, Manchester United was said to be extremely interested. On the transfer deadline day of that January, they allegedly had a 20 million bid turned down for the teenager. But the climate of Manchester United didn't fit Jude. It maybe seemed a bit too much too soon. Similar concerns were felt when inquiries from Spain's Big Two, Chelsea and Bayern Munich, were rebuffed quickly. Moves in these conditions are always hard. Big clubs, they provide that glamour, prestige and more money than the 17-year-old boy could even dream of. But they can always stunt growth with limited game time, and they leave promising talents on the bench. Just 4 years previous to this, Norwegian wonderkid Martin Odegaard achieved many players' dreams by joining Real Madrid at just the tender age of 15. But found the bright lights of the Bernabeu and, the most dominant midfield of all time, too much to displace, and was repeatedly loaned out in search of game time. At the time of our story here, he had just returned from Vitesse on loan. Looking at his contemporaries, I think, can be really important in understanding and contextualising the decision Jude would come to make next. And I think there's only one player that really becomes the most significant in that. Jadon Sancho tore up the rulebook and tore up Borussia Dortmund. Sancho was showing a new route for young English players, starved of football at top clubs. Now, if you're unaware, English players are often wed to their homelands, largely due to massive amounts of money in the Premier League. But frustrated by a lack of opportunities at Manchester City, Jadon left the country's best team for pastures new, on the continent joining Borussia Dortmund for just £8 million in 2017. And he was blazing a trail in the Ruhr, inheriting Ousmane Dembele's famed number 7 shirt after he moved to Barcelona, and providing himself a fair replacement for the departing Frenchman. Borussia Dortmund had watched Jude Bellingham when he started to make waves at age 12, like we told you, one of them top European clubs from earlier. And they earmarked him as one to watch after realising the chances of the teenager leaving the Midlands were pretty slim. The Black and Yellow also had a track record of continuously identifying and nurturing the best young players in the world under the guise of legendary sporting director Michael Zorc. Importantly, they had this perfect blend. They were playing in European competition in the Champions League, but unlike other Champions League clubs, Mbappe immediately provided Jude with a consistent game time. This is a theme that we spoke about with Birmingham City, to develop himself as a player and his ability to compete for top honours in the Bundesliga. Jude would express the value of such sentiments and how they're imperative in his decision making. Quote, "It's the perfect club right now. There's not a better club in the world for producing young talent." Joining for 25 million after only playing 40 professional games, remember, it was a record fee for a 17-year-old, but he started Mbappé's first game of the season with that promise of game time, proving to be more than lip service. Overall, in his first year in Germany, Bellingham adapted to a new culture and league and picked up the first piece of silverware when Dortmund won the DFB Pokal. Overall, Bellingham was beginning to show this maturity far beyond his years, something that his teammates sometimes seem to forget. When celebrating their trophy win, Jude had to remind them he was actually under the legal age to drink in Germany after a beer was almost forcibly poured into his mouth. And it was in this first year at Dortmund that Bellingham made that such an important jump into the senior international setup. When James Ward-Prowse and Trent Alexander-Arnold pulled out of the November England squad with injury, he would receive his first call-up. Bellingham had always been in the thoughts of the national team and been progressing through the youth ranks in a similar vein to the gems that this new England side had and that have shone already at this tournament. And they shone just like that at youth tournaments. The likes of Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden and Mason Mount are just some of the examples you can pick out pretty easily of this. Making his debut against the Republic of Ireland at Wembley on the 12th of November 2020, Jude became the third youngest player to ever play for the Three Lions, only bettered by Wayne Rooney and Theo Walcott. But the international game would be something Jude would struggle with, not in terms of quality, he always had that in abundance. It would be the first time Jude would have to wait for his chance and show this level of patience that in a rocketing career wasn't something he'd actually experienced before. See, even though the number 22 was a shoo-in for the Euro 2020 squad, where he would become the youngest Englishman to play at any major tournament, by the way, he wasn't exactly Gareth Southgate's first pick. The English manager, who has at times frustrated fans with his pragmatism, preferred the defensive security offered by a back three and the partnership of Rice and Phillips providing that sort of box. And he didn't appear to fully trust the youngster yet when it really mattered. He was limited largely to appearances just off the bench, and you can imagine the frustration he must have felt. Clearly the player who can impact winning at the top level, he was sitting on the bench. From this point, everything in his career had been just this straight ride, and you can be forgiven, he could be forgiven. for thinking England would just follow the same pattern. It just didn't happen. England would lose the final of the Euros on penalties to Italy, and although there were substitutions from the bench galore, Jordan Henderson came on for midfield, Bellingham would play no part in the final. But hey, just a year out from the World Cup, there was no real time to sort of wallow in pity. Now into his first season in Germany, Bellingham kept going from strength to strength, due to him gathering more and more responsibility in the side as the likes of Jadon Sancho and Erling Haaland left the club for Manchester in particular, with him becoming pretty much the vocal point of the Borussia Dortmund project. In October this year, he captained the side against Cologne, signaling his importance to this club, before joining up with England for the World Cup squad. Speaking about Qatar, aided by Calvin Phillips' injury and the lack of game time since his move to Manchester City, a spot in midfield had been opened up, and Jude took the opportunity pretty clearly with both hands, partnering Declan Rice for England's opener against Iran, where he got his first international goal in England's tournament opener, with a glancing effort from Luke Shaw's cross, announcing himself as the real deal and an important player in one of the elite nations' bid to win the entire tournament. If, with my editing, we're not actually out yet. Well, now more or less you know the story of how England's gem has gone up to today, but the question now comes, the question really we're all asking and begging as England fans is, how far can he and we go? There's been comparisons to another marauding England midfielder in Steven Gerrard, but the infamous problem with Stevie G was not really in quality. It was how England managed to fit the likes of him in the side and get the best out of him, while also maximising the likes of Lampard and Scholes. Will this be a problem? Not really. I think Bellingham and England sort of have this sorted by his very essence. Declan Rice is seemingly the perfect partner to sit and happy to clean up at the base of midfield and take on one of the roles of that typical English number 4, which would allow Bellingham to be this marauding player that can get forward in the way Stevie G did forcibly, progressing the game and driving England through games and then tournaments. But I want you to remember something we already told you at the start of this about his number, the number 22. He's all the attributes to play as either 4 alongside Declan, as Phillips did in the Euros, to provide that defensive wall to stop top-class opposition. But he's not just that, he's also got that 8 characteristics. He can roam forward against the mediocre and poor, in the same way he did against Iran, getting into the box with those late runs, contributing with goals and really pushing the team on, or against teams we should dominate and when we're feeling so much more comfortable as a possession-based side, which, if I'm honest, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we will be. Eventually, he can play as maybe a second 10 alongside of Phil Foden or Mason Mount. The entire essence of Bellingham in terms of his versatility that got him into the team as a Birmingham youngster and has made him so useful. He can be this kind of, I don't want to say Swiss Army knife, but he can do so many different things in his very essence that I just don't see a way where he has to be shoehorned in, or why we could have this problem in regard to setup. I think as well with that partnership with Declan, because as we say in these boyable videos, it's not a boyable video if I don't somehow shoehorn in Declan Rice. We should remember their average age between the two of them is just 21. I think what he shows and what him and Declan Rice show, he's not the only player to do this, of course. I can make this video very much about Phil Foden, Mason Mount, right? England in midfield seems stacked with wonderkids, and there's no reason they cannot become one of the best there is in the world. And I say stacked with wonderkids because not only is he not the only one, he's not the only one in his family. He has a younger brother who's just broke through, really, I say just broke through, I think it was the season before, at Birmingham City in a similar way to him. And that's maybe what England's been missing all this time, is making the midfield a family affair in terms of getting that massive balance and understanding each other. Hey, who could be better than your brother, right? But that's all I've really got for you today. What's going to happen in Jude Bellingham's career? There's lots of talk about transfers, where he can move. What's the next chapter in his story? Is it the Premier League? Is it Real Madrid? Is it Barcelona? Who knows? One thing can be sure, with Jude Bellingham in our side and 3 lions on our chest, we know we can't go wrong. See you later. Ta-da.